Life, I've found, often deals its cruelest blows not through grand tragedies, but through the quiet erosion of trust, especially within the family you built. My name is Arthur Vance. For 40 years, I designed skylines, crafted spaces, and brought visions to life. Retirement, I'd imagined, would be a gentle, well-deserved twilight, filled with the satisfaction of a career well spent and the warmth of family. I was wrong. It began, as these things often do, with an act of love. My daughter, Clara, had always been challenging. Spirited, some might say. Headstrong, others, including myself, would admit. But beneath it all, I believed, lay a good heart. Or perhaps, that was simply what a father wanted to believe. When her marriage to Mark crumbled, taking with it her sense of stability and, more significantly, the spacious suburban home she'd grown accustomed to, I stepped in. It was a natural impulse. She had 2 young children, my grandchildren, Lily and Ethan, caught in the crossfire of their parents' unraveling. They needed shelter, a fresh start, a soft landing. I owned a secondary property, a charming 2-story house nestled in a quiet, leafy neighborhood, not far from where I lived. It had always been a solid investment, a place I'd poured my architectural knowledge into, ensuring it was structurally sound, tastefully updated, and meticulously maintained. It was valuable, a comfortable home, far more than Clara could afford on her own. You and the children can live there, rent-free, for as long as you need, I told her, trying to keep my voice even, disguising the deep ache in my chest that came from seeing her so broken. Think of it as a stepping stone, a chance to get back on your feet. She hugged me then, a tight embrace that, for a moment, made me feel everything would be all right. Thank you, Dad, she'd whispered, her voice thick with emotion. You're the best. We drew up a simple agreement, a family residence letter, more out of habit than a lack of trust. It outlined basic responsibilities. Keep the property clean, maintain the small garden, be respectful of the neighbors, no excessive noise or damage. Just common sense, really. I signed it. She signed it. It was a formality. I trusted her implicitly. I wanted her to have a fresh start, to rebuild, and to know that her father was there for her, always. My generosity, I hoped, was a testament to that. What Clara didn't know, couldn't possibly have guessed, was that the house held a secret. Years ago, when I'd first purchased the property as an investment, I'd used it as a testing ground for my architectural passions beyond the blueprint. I designed and installed a cutting-edge smart home system, a project of considerable complexity and personal satisfaction. It was long before such technology became commonplace. Disguised as unassuming motion sensors, almost invisible to the casual eye, were high-definition security cameras and highly sensitive audio recorders, subtly placed throughout the common areas and externally. They fed into a central server, archiving everything. It was my private playground, a way to monitor the property remotely, manage energy efficiency, and ensure security without an obvious presence. It was never intended as a tool of surveillance against my own family. But life, as I mentioned, has a way of twisting intentions. For a few months, things seemed to settle. Clara enrolled the children in a new school, found a part-time job, and the initial reports from neighbors were generally positive. I allowed myself a quiet sense of satisfaction. My daughter was finding her way, and I had helped. Then, the small changes began. A faint disquiet. Lily, my granddaughter, mentioned once during a park visit that the house sometimes had lots of noise late at night. Ethan, often quiet, seemed a little more withdrawn. I dismissed it at first. Children often exaggerate. But the seed of doubt was planted. One Tuesday afternoon, I had planned to drop by the house to check on a minor plumbing issue I'd offered to fix. I'd been monitoring the system from my own home that morning, a habit, really, to ensure all was well with my investment. I saw Clara was home, talking on the phone. I hesitated, not wanting to interrupt, and decided to wait a little longer before heading over. But then, a phrase caught my ear through the audio feed, sharper, more venomous than anything I expected. Honestly, Aunt Carol, it's a living nightmare here. Clara's voice sliced through the speaker of my tablet. laced with a bitterness I hadn't heard directed at me in years. He calls this a fresh start? It's a dingy old house, barely big enough. And the nerve of him, expecting me to be grateful. He knows I'm struggling, but does he offer actual help? No, just this hand-me-down property. My blood ran cold. Dingy old house. I'd spent a fortune renovating it. It was immaculate. I listened, my fingers tightening unconsciously around the tablet. And the rent-free part? Please, she scoffed, a dry, dismissive sound. He owes me. He's always been a terrible father, Aunt Carol. Always too busy with his blueprints and his grand projects to actually be there. This is the least he could do. And now he's just cheap. He thinks throwing a house at me absolves him of years of neglect. Well, it doesn't. The words hit me like physical blows, each one a tiny shard of glass, embedding itself deep. He owes me. Terrible father. Cheap. The raw venom in her voice was unmistakable. My generosity, my genuine desire to help, had been twisted, warped into a weapon against me, a flimsy justification for her resentment. I sat there, stunned, the tablet in my hand feeling impossibly heavy. My vision blurred slightly, my chest constricting. All the sacrifices, the missed family dinners because I was building a future for her, the late nights poring over her school assignments, the quiet pride in her achievements, all of it dismissed, erased, by a bitter, self-serving narrative. The plumbing issue forgotten, I sat for a long time, the silence of my own home amplifying the echo of her betrayal. My first impulse was a crushing wave of despair, followed quickly by a cold, hard anger. I had loved her, supported her, opened my home and my heart to her. And she had repaid me with this. The despair, however, was quickly replaced by a chilling clarity. Clara called me cheap? Neglectful? Well, I had built this house, and I knew its every secret. My smart home system, once a source of professional pride, now became a tool of necessity, a witness to the truth. I accessed the archives. It was a comprehensive, time-stamped record, stretching back to the day she moved in. I started with that phone call, playing it back repeatedly, making sure I hadn't misheard, hadn't misunderstood. Each re-listening only solidified the ugly truth. Then I delved deeper. I began reviewing the recordings, day by day, week by week. What I saw and heard was a chilling affirmation of her duplicity and a stark violation of every aspect of our family residence agreement. There were the parties. Lavish, raucous affairs that started late and ended even later. The recordings showed dozens of strangers trampling through the house. Drinks spilled on the hardwood floors I'd painstakingly restored. Cigarette ash flicked into my flower beds. The audio captured the blaring music, the drunken laughter, the shouts echoing into the early hours, undoubtedly terrorizing the quiet neighbors. Then there was the neglect. The carefully tended garden I had planted, now overgrown with weeds, plants dying from lack of water. Litter, empty takeout containers, and discarded clothes scattered across the living room floor. Fingerprints and smudges on every surface. My heart ached seeing the pristine white walls I'd painted now scuffed and marked, a child's crayon drawing defacing one corner. The children, sweet Lily and quiet Ethan, often appeared unsupervised, wandering through the mess, their faces sometimes etched with a quiet sadness I couldn't ignore. I watched Clara too, not always at the parties, but in the quiet moments. Her complaining to friends about the house, about me. My dad thinks he's a saint, letting us live here, I heard her tell someone. But honestly, he probably just wants to feel important. The house is a money pit, always something breaking. A money pit she wasn't paying a dime for. The evidence mounted, an irrefutable mountain of audio and video clips, each meticulously time-stamped, each a testament to her ingratitude and deliberate disregard. I spent days compiling the most damning moments, creating a concise, undeniable montage. It wasn't about revenge, not truly. It was about truth, about facing the reality of what my daughter had become and the fundamental injustice of her claims. My generosity had not only been unappreciated, it had been weaponized. And now, my hidden power, the very system I had built with integrity, would reveal all. The family dinner was an annual tradition, a gathering of aunts, uncles, cousins, and both my children, Clara and my older son, David, who was a far more grounded individual. It was always held at my home, a sprawling, modern house that was the pinnacle of my architectural achievements. I chose this dinner deliberately. Clara thrived on public sympathy, on casting herself as the wronged party. This public forum would serve as her undoing. The evening started innocently enough. Laughter, the clinking of glasses, the aroma of roast lamb filling the air. Clara, in her usual fashion, had found a captive audience, regaling Aunt Carol. Yes, that Aunt Carol, looking slightly uncomfortable, and a few cousins with a dramatic tale of her ongoing struggles. It's just so hard, you know, she sighed dramatically, taking a sip of wine. Being a single mom, trying to make ends meet, and then having to deal with everything. She paused, glancing pointedly at me from across the table. I met her gaze with an unreadable expression. Some people just don't understand what real sacrifice means. They think because they give you a roof over your head, that's enough. Not a word about the actual emotional support, the financial strain, the repairs that are always needed. Her voice trailed off, a clear insinuation. My son, David, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. My grandchildren, Lily and Ethan, were absorbed in their plates, perhaps sensing the rising tension. I took a slow sip of my own wine. The moment had arrived. Clara, I said, my voice calm, almost unnervingly so. I've heard you make remarks like this before. About my lack of support, my supposed parsimony. She bristled. Dad, I never said you were parsimonious. I just said it's a lot for me right now. Indeed. I reached for the tablet I had discreetly placed beside me. The room, usually buzzing with conversation, fell silent, drawn in by the sudden shift in my tone. Perhaps it's time we all had a clearer understanding of your definition of support and sacrifice. With a practiced movement, I connected the tablet to the integrated projector in my dining area, another feature of my own smart home design. The wall behind me, usually adorned with abstract art, flickered to life. Clara watched, a slight frown of confusion on her face. Then, the first image appeared. A video clip of my rental property, pristine and welcoming, on the day she moved in. This was followed by a series of time-stamped images. The increasingly unkempt garden, the accumulating trash, the scuff marks on the walls. Then the audio began. Her voice, clear and unmistakable, filling the room. He owes me. He's always been a terrible father, and now he's just cheap. A collective gasp swept through the room. Aunt Carol's face went chalk white. Clara's spoon clattered onto her plate. Her eyes, wide with disbelief and dawning horror, darted from the screen to me. The montage continued, relentlessly. Videos of her lavish parties, the house crammed with strangers, loud music thumping, drinks being spilled. Shots of my grandchildren, looking small and lost amidst the chaos. My voice, calm and even, narrated occasionally over the ambient noise. Here, October 12th, 2 a.m. Another gathering, clearly violating the quiet enjoyment clause of our agreement. Then came the clip of her dismissing the house as dingy, followed by visual proof of the deliberate neglect. The broken fixture she claimed was always faulty, but was clearly damaged from misuse. The overflowing rubbish bin she blamed on the city. Her complaints to her friends about me being unsupportive played over footage of her buying expensive clothes and dining out, while claiming financial distress. Clara's face was utterly drained of color. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked like a cornered animal, caught in the headlights of her own deceit. The casual murmurs of the family had been replaced by a heavy, stunned silence, broken only by the damning audiovisual evidence. Lily and Ethan looked utterly bewildered, their eyes wide and innocent. David's expression was a mixture of shock and profound sadness. The final clip showed her, just last week, on the phone again, complaining about the burden of the house. Honestly, he just wants to control me. He's never really cared. He just wants to feel like the big shot benefactor. I paused the projection, the last image of her bitter face frozen on the wall. The silence in the room was deafening, thick with unvoiced questions and inescapable judgment. I looked at Clara, my heart heavy but my resolve firm. My generosity, I stated, my voice cutting through the silence like ice, has its limits, daughter. Clara finally found her voice, a strangled, desperate cry. Dad, how could you? You were spying on me. I was monitoring my property, Clara. I corrected her, my gaze unwavering. A property I allowed you to live in, rent-free, out of love and a desire to help. A property you have systematically neglected, abused, and used as a platform to slander me. I swept my hand towards the wall. The evidence speaks for itself. You called me a terrible father, cheap, neglectful. You claimed I owed you. Well, consider this repayment. Before she could form another word, I slid a stack of legal papers across the table towards her. This is an eviction notice, effective immediately. You and your children have 30 days to vacate the premises. The public shaming was complete. Clara snatched the papers, her hands trembling. Her eyes, filled with a mixture of rage and unspeakable shame, darted around the room, meeting the shocked, disgusted stares of our family. She scrambled out of her chair, knocking it over, and fled the dining room without another word, the sound of her hurried footsteps echoing down the hall. The aftermath was painful, a family fractured beyond repair. True to my word, I served the eviction notice. The written agreement Clara had so casually signed made it ironclad. Within a week, I had begun the process of legally disinheriting her. It wasn't a decision made lightly, but with a heavy heart, knowing that her actions had irrevocably broken the bond of trust and respect that formed the foundation of any inheritance. My legacy would not be used to enable such contempt. The property, once a symbol of my hope for her future, was quickly put on the market. It sold within weeks, fetching a good price even with the minor repairs needed, which I funded myself. The money, substantial as it was, did not go to me. Instead, I used every single penny to establish a comprehensive trust for my grandchildren, Lily and Ethan. The terms were clear: funds for their education, their health care, and a secure foundation for their future, accessible only when they reached adulthood, and managed by an independent trustee. It was my way of ensuring that despite their mother's catastrophic failures, their lives would not be derailed. Clara, stripped of her home, her family's respect, and her expected inheritance, faced the stark reality of her choices.